Hi everyone, it's me, Laura, Dead Aspie. Um, I originally had a video that I was going to put out there about both the Mika Stauffer adoption thing and about the protests happening everywhere. But when I was editing the video, I didn't want to I don't know, there was something about it that I just didn't want it to come off like disingenuous because yeah, I do a lot of editing to, keep the pacing okay, but part of it is because that I communicate better in writing than I do verbally because I can at least look over it and review what and make sure I'm properly communicating what I'm trying to say. So verbally it's not as easy for me to do that, obviously. Um but um yeah, I figured it would be better to give a more raw and uncut like version of this, my thoughts and stuff, if that makes any sense. There are commentary channels that talk about Mika Stauffer much better, in much better detail than I can, and I did make a long Twitter thread about it. You're welcome to read that if you'd like, but I wanted to give my perspective as an autistic person who feels that in some ways that parents had failed them. Um, but going to the protests, to put things in perspective, at least from what I understand, they're protesting because people, particularly black, African American, whatever you want to call it, um, they're being murdered by police officers who are supposed to protect and serve us. And that's not okay, in any sense of the word. And a lot of times, these things happen over, the littlest things. Most recently, we know about George Floyd. And even since then, there's been, at least a couple more black folks being murdered by police. So think about that for a second. Um, George Floyd was apparently murdered over a $20 bill that may or may not have been counterfeited. Think about that. A man was murdered over $20. What about that is okay? Nothing. I'm a police officer and I can tell you that. But we also have had, Eric Garner a while back, who got killed by police officers by an illegal chokehold, by the way, that police officers are not supposed to use, for selling loose cigarettes, which is a very common occurrence in New York City and other parts of the country, honestly, probably anywhere. And even kids just walking around at night, or someone at a traffic stop, someone being called about a break-in when that's their own home. All sorts of bullshit like that. It's whatever excuse that they can come up with. And you may or may not have been noticing the protests that have been happening in response to these events. Okay, think of it this way. And put yourself in the perspective of this community for a hot second, okay? Imagine that you are part of a group of people who are consistently put at a disadvantage by social economical reasons and even just the threat and potential of being attacked, brutalized, or murdered just because as something as arbitrary as the color of your skin. All right? So imagine being part of that community and doing protest after protest after protest, all peaceful options. Even when Colin Kaepernick took a knee during a football game, lots of people were missing the point. And you're exhausting every single peaceful option. But little to nothing has changed. Of course people are going to be mad, they're pissed, and they're fed up with the bullshit. So, yeah, if looting and rioting are happening as a result of that, is it really not, is it not justified? I don't know. But to anybody who is doing any looting or rioting, please try to make sure you're not doing it to small businesses and mom and pop shops or bodegas or things like that, because those people don't have the resources and the time to recover, much like bigger corporations. Like Target themselves, like the people with Target said that they can rebuild very easily and they're not worried. So go after bigger, you know, companies and corporations and shit like that. Try to leave the small businesses out of it. Um, if you're going to do it. And speaking of that, there's also plenty of video evidence, firsthand accounts, all sorts of things of the violence started by police officers. Okay? Let that sink in for a second. There are tear gas canisters, like flashbangs, I think, or like concussion grenades or something like that, and rubber bullets being fired into unarmed, peacefully protesting crowds of people for no warning, no messages to be like clear the space or else or whatever. Even people putting their hands up or doing nothing but kneeling and raising a fist, that doesn't warrant using that force. And on top of that, they're not even firing the rubber bullets correctly. They're supposed to shoot it at the ground, not in people's faces. They've even gone so far as to pepper spraying children. And if you're someone who thinks, why would you bring a child to a protest? You're missing the point. And people not even remotely involved in the protests are being attacked. Like, there was a lady who was getting groceries. Just getting groceries. And had nothing to do with the protests. Still got shot in the face. There's medics and journalists who are doing everything they're supposed to and are trying to help, also getting shot at and attacked. So, if you're listening to me say this and you're mad about this, you have every fucking right to be mad. Especially if you're not white, like me. Of course you're gonna, like, it's understandable and it's completely valid, and I'm not gonna sit here and tell anybody how to feel about this. Like, I'm not gonna sit here, especially not black folks, because I'm not black, I can't speak for them, and I will never understand fully what they're going through. I will never understand that, and I want to make that very clear. Because we as white people, like, we need to do better. And the racist bullshit, it needs to stop. Like, it's been needing to stop for a long time, but we need to do better. Like, even if you can't be out there on the front lines, because not everybody can, for a variety of different reasons, there are plenty of ways that you can help. You can offer support to people who need it. Like, you could be, I don't know, like a social worker or something. Maybe you can donate to funds, like, for funeral costs, or like bailout funds for protesters, or sign petitions. I'll leave some resources that I can find in the description below if you want to explore those. Please do. And, like, to anybody with any semblance of following, and my following's pretty damn small, especially on, like, YouTube, but also, like, on Twitch and stuff, it's pretty fucking small. But even if you have that, do what you can to help. Like, take action. Somehow. Even if it's just, like, the donations and stuff. And, you know, do something. To any influencers out there that are using their platform with greater influence and a greater following to do what they can to help, that's fucking awesome of you to do. And it's amazing to see that your actions are backing up your words. And I think that's the point of what we want to do. Especially, you know, just anybody. I was gonna say, like, especially white people, like, help out, but, like, that should be a given. Like, just be allies, you know, and call out people for their bullshit. Call out your friends, your family. Like, casual racism needs to stop. Like, period. And that goes for any form of bigotry, but we're gonna put more focus on the Black Lives Matter movement because that's where a lot of this is centered around. So, that's not to say the other bigotry isn't important. Especially since now it's Pride Month, and in case you forgot, the Stonewall situation was a riot, and the people who threw the first bricks were a butch lesbian and a transgender woman who was black, and I believe a sex worker. So, if you think riots don't solve anything, you have not been paying attention to history. Because without that, we wouldn't have weekends, we wouldn't have unions, we wouldn't have gay rights, we wouldn't have civil rights, even for the black community that is fighting now. So, there is something to be said about it. Obviously, we would love to not take the nonviolent route, but it's apparently becoming necessary because that's the only way things are going to change. And yeah, so that's some of my thoughts on it. And like, if you see people saying like ACAB and stuff like that, please understand why, and take the time to listen and educate yourself. That's really one thing that could be super helpful, because some people genuinely don't know, and I get it, but they may be open to learning. If they are expressing, like, I tend to try to be like, hey, I want to learn about this thing, let me see what I can find. And I try to find, like, reliable places to look for information. If someone's willing, then cool. And if they're not, fuck them. If they don't want to learn, then don't waste your time. They'll come to you when they want to learn. Because, like, nothing's going to change if you don't want it to change. So, yeah, that's sort of where my brain is at the moment. It's kind of a mess, and it is for a lot of people, which also brings to, if you need to take some time to take a step back for preserving your mental health, that's fine. Like, for anybody. Because, like, this is a lot. And it's a very situation, you know? It's big, it's huge. And hopefully things will get better and will resolve and whatever. Like, I just hope that things, like, better things come out of this. That's what I'm hoping. So, you know, Black Lives Matter. No ifs, ands, or buts. And they always will. Alright? Don't ever fucking forget that. And if you're out there protesting, please stay safe. Don't go by yourself, and take whatever precautions you have to take, because shit's crazy. And, you know, do what you can. So stay safe. And until next time. Bye, everyone. Take care.